thinking there.
Well, good morning. My name is Jeff Beller, and this is our number one show. I'm going to try to do a YouTube for you because it's very complicated what's going on now. Uh, we have um, we have a problem that's never happened before, but in a way, it's actually a good thing. Uh, it's unfortunately that it took this pandemic to to uh, to make this thing happen. Um, we believe in money, unfortunately, worldwide more than we believe in God or life, and that's showing now with the rush to open up the economy. Uh, the economy is really important. I don't think it's that important for money. Important for people to do stuff. I was listening this morning to a newscaster on Sunday morning, and they were talking about their children and how it's going to affect their children psychologically with this pandemic. And here we are, and these are pretty privileged people, and they have the internet, and they have electricity, and there's plenty of food, but they're not realizing that how it's affecting. This is a global pandemic, and how it affects people, let's say in Africa, Rwanda, where people are living in together, and in the jungles, people are living in squalor in other parts of the world. Uh, this is pretty horrendous, and no matter how bad we have it here, and we have it, of course, more deaths in this country, but I don't know how even accurate these things are, but we have to look at the rest of the world, and that's why for the past 8 years we've been working on a currency at Renew the Earth called a energy currency, and we now changed the name. We called it actually to begin with a human renewable energy measure, and we've changed the name to simplify it because it became pretty complicated. So we changed it to a global energy currency, or an era energy currency. And what energy currency means is that you just print the currency up, you use it, simply use it, and then once it's used, we we destroy it so it doesn't create inflation. But meanwhile, all the things get used, and it's used for health care, food, shelter, education. Mainly, that's it. And then we have another currency which is being talked about quite a bit now, called the universal basic income. Now a see that's a want thing. That's to go out and buy what you want. You want to buy fancier tomatoes, or pay for your car, or whatever. That's what that is. But the energy currency, or the human renewable energy measurement, is based on actual measurements. It's objective. It's based on energy units like joules or calories. Everybody in the world uses exactly the same energy units to stay alive, more or less. We all live about 80 years of age. We all use about 1 million energy units or calories a year for food, more or less. You can measure the energy units in water. We need the same amount of water, about 1 million energy units of water a year to stay alive. So every person in the world, anywhere in the world, uses the same amount of energy units for their basic needs met, not their wants. Now, again, along with the needs have to be met, and that has to be done on a worldwide basis. And we can now do that. We have the opportunity now to set a currency up that makes, and we have to all agree upon this, that every human being in the world has their basic needs met based on their energy units, which never changes. It's like trying to bringing the sun up in the morning. You can't legislate it or change it. It's physics. So the energy currency is based on physics, not on subjective money. Money is nothing more than subjective. Now, the UBI, or a basic income, goes along with all other incomes, and we can make sure that uh, everyone gets the UBI, and you can also peg that to how much money somebody makes. That can be, you can handle that money any way you want. So you have two streams of currencies coming through. You have the energy currency, which is gives you the education, food, shelter, and health care. That's for every person on the planet. It's not meant for, you can't invest that money. That means the big guys can't take it and use it to make money on. It's only to make sure all people around the world have the same needs, and they have the same, and those needs are taken care of. And then we have the UBI, Universal Basic Income, in some form to make sure that people can buy what they would like to buy to a degree. That's why. But when you just arbitrarily give someone, let's say, $1,000 a month or $50 a month, that has to be determined, and it's also it has to be figured out. Where the energy currency is already figured out. We must have these basic needs met. The universal basic income gives you the basic income, so you can keep the economy going and have a better quality of life. That's the first thing. The second thing is I would like to address is how do we make this concept happen? Well, right now, the U.S. government is giving out money. They're just printing it and giving it out. It probably never has to be paid back, but it is printed money from the IMF, and they have to okay that, and we have to sort of borrow that in some form, and it sort of gets distributed over the last problem we had before Obama was elected. They borrowed a lot of money and they never really paid that back. So the reality, there's nothing behind any money, and money has no value, and it's a belief system. So if we can continue to print up the money and make sure we, just like counterfeit money, and that's all it is. But we believe in the money because we can transfer it, we can spend it, we can barter with that money, and you can now so you can just print the money up. It doesn't mean anything. What the true value is not in the money or the gold or the silver. That's a means of transferring your human labor or your human and intellectual labor to other people. And we can make this a great planet. And if we had this system in place for energy currency, and we all agree to that, we can actually make this a much, much better world and a much better way to do it. But the only way to get this to happen is an agreement worldwide, just a worldwide agreement that all human beings have to have their basic needs met in healthcare, food, shelter, education. That has to be done, and that's where we use the energy currency or the global energy currency. Now, I don't know if I'm making it clear enough, but I'm hoping I get some response on tweet or wherever you can get me response to. You can probably get a hold of Renew the Earth, or you can get a hold of or tweet. I'm on tweet every day nowadays. So it's a new game for me. But anyway, we need to have this as an understanding. Like we all agree for colors. White shirt, in every language is a white shirt, and black shirt, colors we believe in. We all believe that the sun comes up every day. By the way, we're just getting over the virus ourselves, and it's been 8 weeks now, and I'm not a young person. Anyway, we said about maybe 6 years ago when we first were working on this, the only way to get this to happen would be a worldwide strike. Well, that's what's happening now. The virus is giving us a worldwide strike. And the people who were the politicians who were, sort of pulling the theoretical strings, they really don't have any strings to pull, because if the world went on a strike right now, what would we do if you didn't have the people stocking the shelves or picking up the garbage, or the nurses in the hospital? And why would a politician who makes maybe 100 or 1,000 times more than, and then in some cases exactly that, than someone who's stocking the shelves, or a nurse? There's a tremendous imbalance in this world, and this is what Bernie Sanders was trying to bring out. And this is the first time, well, all through history they've been talking about the inequality of humanity. Well, in this case, this is the first time in history where we can measure in energy units what a human being needs. Now, what makes us different is not what our needs are, is what our wants are. So we figured that if you work 1 hour a day, just 1 hour a day, your basic needs can be met. Then you have 23 more hours to use the capitalistic system for the things that you want. Because, the basic needs, education, food, and shelter, are pretty easy, pretty cheap. I mean, there's enough food in this world to feed everybody. The problem is getting the distribution of that food is the problem. So people, nowhere in the world should have to starve because of lack of food. Water is the same problem. There's plenty of water, but we have to make sure it's distributed properly, and we have the facilities for it. And we can't keep charging people for it. A lot of companies, the big companies, come into parts of Africa and they bring them food. And once they bring them food, water. And then, but then they charge them for the water. I'm not explaining it as well as I'd like to.
You can go into it in another one.
But
you can go into it in another.
Yeah, I'll go into that at a different time. And we have friends of ours from Uganda and from Cameroon, Africa, and from Rwanda. It's horrendous what we have been doing over there for money. The Pope has been hitting on this topic, and I believe me. By the way, I'm not a Republican and I'm not a Democrat. I'm an independent, and I'm not religious, but I believe that we have something that's showing us now, for the first time ever, that we are one planet. We are one planet. And Buckminster Fuller used to call it a spaceship. So if you look at this globe, or look at it as a spaceship floating in outer space, and there's about 200 rooms in this spaceship, and if we allow one room to be blown up, or start killing people in that room, and they run into the hallways to the next room, we have a responsibility to keep our own planet, our own spaceship in order. And that's where Bucky came in, Bucky Fuller. He wrote a book called
Operating Manual.
The Operating Manual for Spaceship Earth. And I recommend that if you get, it's online, and it's about 100 pages, and while you're doing nothing, sitting in the house, take a look and read that manual. It's called the Operating Manual for Spaceship Earth. Another thing I'd like to bring out is we have all these great, smart, genius economists talking. You must realize that when they talk to you, money is, if you ask them what money is, and there's been many books written on that. I met an economist years ago, John Gowdy, and I did a radio program with them, and I had Gowdy on one side of me and another professor named Dr. David Borton, and they were both out of RPI, Rensselaer Polytechnical Institute, and Gowdy was talking to me about. I said, well, what is the money? He said, well, it's a belief system. I said, you're kidding me. He said, well, yeah, if people didn't believe in money, they wouldn't work for it. And this is where Dr. Borton came up with the actual measurement about what a human being needs in food and in calories and in water. And you can measure, of course, your surroundings, whether you live in a penthouse apartment in Manhattan or you live in a hut in Africa. The energy required to keep you alive out of the weather is pretty much measured, so you know what it is. So the energy units work. Now the question then is, someone asked us on one of the tweets I did. Remember his name?
Do you want me to?
Yeah. Well, I got a nice tweet from someone, and he said to me, "Well, how do you go ahead and pay people?" Well, we realized that because of the technology and the robots and the things that people are afraid of, you really only need to work about 1 hour a day for your basic needs met. But then again, you have your wants. That's what makes us all different. People may want a Hummer, or they may want a Prius, or they may not want anything. They may want to just play music and sit in the woods. So you have the ability of you have 23 more hours out of the hours a day to work your butt off to see what you for your wants. But your basic needs worldwide must be met. And then you can let the capitalistic system flow. So we're talking about two means of currencies. One is for your basic needs met, which is the energy currency. And that has to be for food, shelter, education, healthcare. And then you have whatever currency you use, you match the currency to the energy needs for that. And then you can put your income into that. And then if you want to put on top of that the universal basic income to make sure everybody can spend money and have those needs met,
Right.
that's also fine. I don't know.
That money would be extra spent to kind of stimulate the economy or whatever.
Right, that's what makes the economy flow, and that's what we're trying to get back to, because we want to have fun, and basic needs are not. You'll have your basic needs met, but then on top of that, you have to exercise your mind for the things you want to do. And people want to work. People are not meant to do nothing.
What this guy is concerned about is how to evaluate human input and output.
Well, right. Well,
that was his question.
The-
We don't have a name here though.
yes, it's
Well, it's
EUGRO
OW.
at Egro at Egro, and that was his name, and that I think that's the guy's the name. It's hard to tell on.
Well, it's not a personal name.
It is a personal name.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that
Okay.
yes, he was some kind of a professor. Anyway, it doesn't matter. He asked a very interesting question,
I don't know.
but it's hard to. I'm trying to give this video to you to show that this currency has got to be accepted worldwide, and it's for all basic needs met. But you still need to put in about an hour a day's worth of work. A mother or father are working. They will get the basic needs met, and up and beyond that is when your universal basic income will kick in, along with any other currency you want to bring in. So that's the point I'm trying to make. And as long as we have the basic needs met in all forms, you can call it anything you like. We are always looking for input on this. So hopefully this will be a way. I'm trying to make it as clear as I can. And anybody who wants to call, we'll take call-ins at some point in time. I'll be tweeting with people, and if they want to come on the program through a tweet, or they want to come on to the program directly, I'm all for it. We don't want arguments, or we don't want to argue with anybody. We just want to see what their ideas are to help the
Make things
economic
better.
system and the world environment. And by the way, we are now seeing for the first time in history that the planet, the first time in the last 100, 200 years, that the planet, since the Industrial Revolution, right, that the planet is cleaning itself in such a short time. So we know we can fix this. We
Because
know
people
we
have
can
stopped
do it.
driving
And
planes have stopped.
and that's the next problem. I want to thank you all for listening. This is Jeff Beller and Susan Comar. Thanks so much. Bye now.